All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this workshop on extremism and subjectivity. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all. It is the fourth workshop in a row of 5 in total, the final one being in September this year. So we've had a chance to improve on the way we organize things, and I think we're almost there, and in September the final workshop is going to be perfect in terms of organization. This one is close to perfect, hopefully. So what I'll do in this short introductory talk before we get to the first keynote by Qasim Qassam is that I'll sketch the background of this workshop, the Extreme Beliefs Project. I'll briefly sketch the theme of this workshop and the questions that we will try to address and tackle. And finally, I will address a few practicalities. That's basically what I'll try to do in this short 15 minutes. All right, so in the Extreme Beliefs Project, we study extreme beliefs of various kinds, beliefs that motivate people to commit extremist action or even terrorist action or engage in conspiracy theorizing. Here we see one example from a few years ago, Brenton Tarrant in Christchurch, New Zealand, the horrific attack on various mosques, killing more than 50 people. But also improper influence, indoctrination in primary or secondary schools. There was this case a few years ago, Cornelius Haga School in this city, in Amsterdam, allegedly various kinds of influence via institutions in the Middle East, conflicting with democratic values. And this other case, another example that we are all familiar with, I'm afraid. A few years ago, storming of the Capitol, blends of various kinds of extremism, QAnon conspiracy theorizing, anti-institutional extremism, civilian militia, and the like. All right, so we study these extreme beliefs of various kinds, and the basic idea is that there has been a lot of empirical and historical work on extreme behavior as manifested in fundamentalist action or extremist action, but not as much attention for some of the underlying beliefs, and even less so from a more conceptual or normative point of view. So that was the original idea for this project. And the basic idea was to have 4 sub-projects and then a synthesis, so basically an epistemology of individual fundamentalist belief, an epistemology of group fundamentalist belief, so on a group level, then the ethics of fundamentalist beliefs, so what can we expect from people in terms of the beliefs that they form, and when are they properly excused, for instance, by indoctrination, and then a large synthesis. So that was the basic idea, and we're still doing that. But in the course of time, the project changed a little bit, and that was partly because of various more empirical projects joining the more philosophical and theoretical work. So a few examples are someone working on extremist rhetoric on Insta, both in Mumbai and Amsterdam, de-radicalization in the Levant, so when people converted away from radical Islam. Belief policies and conspiracy theories, de-radicalization and trauma coping in Nigeria, and extremism and deepfakes. These are just some examples of the projects that joined as we got started. So in the course of time, I think it gradually dawned upon us that we might do something slightly different. And what we're doing now is we're trying to develop a new paradigm. And just to be clear, this is not something that we came up with ourselves. It's various elements of a new paradigm that we believe we perceive in the study of extreme belief and behavior. And what we want to do also in these workshops and the other work we're doing is to articulate and explore this new paradigm. All right, so it has 5 elements roughly. One core idea that we explore is to think of and conceptualize of extremists as non-pathological generally and rational people. Of course, they suffer from pathology, but then lots of people do. And of course, even there are cases of pathology that may influence their belief and behavior, but it doesn't work as a general categorical explanation of why people become extremists. The second idea, I've got to be very sketchy here, by the way, right? More detail elsewhere. A second idea is that we ought to take extremists and fundamentalists and conspiracy theorizers seriously in this very specific sense, that in order to fully understand and explain extremism or conspiracy theorizing, we need to listen to these people, to the accounts that they provide, so their own reasons that they give, their own narratives, their subjectivity. We need to take their subjectivity seriously. A third idea is that in understanding and explaining, perhaps even predicting extremism, we need to study not just the extremists and extremist movements, but also ourselves as researchers or even policymakers, to study the norms, the tacit assumptions, the that we work with in studying extremism, basically our positionality. The fourth idea is that we need to study these phenomena across 5 domains. So there's fundamentalism, extremism, fanaticism, conspiracy theorizing, and terrorism. And we believe these 5 fields would benefit from more exchange between them. And we give various examples of how that would work. And finally, we believe that some sort of radical interdisciplinarity is needed. So there's been a lot of social psychological research, sociological, criminological research on extremism, terrorism, and the like. And of course, that's splendid, valuable work. But we also need disciplines that have been rather silent so far, and philosophy and theology are an example of that, even though it's changing nowadays, fortunately, partly due to the work of Qasim Qassam and others. And maybe even fields like literary studies. All right, so that's basically the idea, and we're developing, articulating these ideas in a book series, the first 2 of which are forthcoming by the end of this year or early next year with OUP. 7 volumes, 5 edited volumes, and 2 monographs. If you want to know more about that, let me know. All right, here's the team. Some of these people are also in the room, and let me ask them to kind of raise their hand so that you can find them in case you've got any questions. So there's Nora here in front of the room. There's Ruth Tietjen sitting there. There's Julia in the back. There's Anna. There's Alain over there. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anyone. There's Imen over here. And there's Joe, who's running to the other building to get a Wi-Fi code for those who don't have one yet. Okay? Am I not forgetting anybody? Oh, there's Naomi, and there's Wilma, sorry. Of course. There's Naomi, and there's Wilma, and there's Ruth. I think we're there, right? Okay, good. If you want to know more about these ideas, you can consult the website, extremebeliefs.com. Now, as to the theme of the workshop, let me sketch some core ideas that I hope we can address over these 2 days. So, the basic idea is that we want to think about the subjectivity of 3 kinds of people, of 3 kinds of individuals. So first there's the subjectivity, so the inner world of the extremist or conspiracy theorizing, but also that of the researcher studying extremism, and that of the practitioner or the policymaker, and how those 3 relate to one another. Second, hopefully we can address what this subjectivity amounts to. So the term subjectivity is all over the place in the literature, but exactly how should we construe it in terms of its affective dimension, its cognitive dimension, its conative dimension, so its desires, intentions, purposes, and the like, and the axiological dimension, so the values that are embraced. A third area is taking seriously. So what does this taking seriously amount to? Naomi Kloosterboer, who's over there, will address that in her talk tomorrow. Taking seriously extremism, what does that amount to? What does it not amount to? What is the role of empathy in that process? I think Qasim Qassam will also dwell on that in his talk in a few minutes. The 5 domains. So how does engaging the subjectivity of an extreme believer and actor in fanaticism, for instance, relate to that in terrorism or radical conspiracy theorizing? Our own positionality. So, for instance, what is the influence of our own subjectivity on the way we construe the subjectivity of the extreme believer and actor? And finally, there are also a few theologians in our midst, the issue of religiosity, or maybe secular worldviews or secular life orientations. What role does it play in the subjectivity of extreme believers and actors, and how does it matter to understanding extremism and terrorism, and explaining it, maybe even predicting it? So that's roughly the theme of the workshop. And by way of background, so I said we've got 5 workshops. So the first one was on the conceptual foundations, then there was one on explanation, then there was one on responsibility and extremism. Now we've got this one, and then the 5th and final one will be on resilience. So you can kind of see the red line, the pattern there, hopefully. All right, finally, practicalities. If you've got a presentation, please let us know in terms of bring the PowerPoint along so that we put it up there. Tomorrow, and this is good news for us all, I think we'll start 25 minutes later. Good news for us all, but the reason is that one lecture, unfortunately, had to be cancelled. That is the lecture by Kinga Zeller, for personal reasons, so that's really too bad. And let me express the hope that we'll have her over some other time. That would be terrific. So, but that means we'll start 25 minutes later tomorrow, so you'll all have more time for breakfast or explore the city or whatever. All right, speakers' dinner. So today we've got dinner for us all. Tomorrow's is speakers dinner. I want to emphasize you can join the speakers dinner even if you're not a speaker. But for the speakers, it's covered, so that's the basic distinction. But if you want to join us tomorrow, please do so. Payment, sorry to mention such banal issues. If you haven't done so already, please approach one of us, basically. Recordings, so all the talks are recorded, unless you indicate that you prefer your talk not to be recorded. And if your talk is recorded, you can also have a look at it before it goes online. So you've got a go, no-go moment, right? And then finally, if you've got any questions, please let us know. We're around. Any other urgent things now? So I said Joe is getting some Wi-Fi codes for those who can't access the Jerome. I think that should work, right? Yeah? All right, good. That's it. Qasim, may I invite you to come to the fore. So our first speaker for today is Professor Qasim from the University of Warwick. He's been involved in this project for various years already, also as an advisory board member. And he's well known for his work in and beyond philosophy on more or less classical issues like self-knowledge, but also, how can I say, more trendy or topical topics like vice epistemology, and nowadays lots of issues in political epistemology, conspiracy theorizing, extremism, and terrorism, even writing a book on it. That will hopefully soon be out on the philosophy of terrorism. And as I said, he's been an advisory board member. He's presented before at, in the project and at our workshops. So it's terrific to have you over again. And the floor is yours. Oh, and let me also mention the title. So the full title is Terrorism and Subjectivity.